Those who will oppose this bill will undoubtedly do so using the argument that this bill will somehow make us less safe. I couldn't disagree more. We have to remember that if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Here, making a choice not to reform will make us less safe. Consider the fact that we currently spend about 25% of the Department of Justice's annual budget on the Bureau of Prisons. Consider further that that figure will increase to about 30% by the year 2020. Consider also that this is roughly on par with what we spend on the FBI and the DEA combined. So every single time we enact a new minimum mandatory penalty, every single year that elapses when we don't reform our existing minimum mandatory penalties, insofar as those minimum mandatories are out of whack or out of sync with realities, with legitimate penological interests, with something that will actually make us more safe, then we are making ourselves less safe. People sometimes ask me why I'm a conservative Republican, and yet I support this. I support this not in spite of my status as a conservative Republican, but because of it. I mean, first of all, Republicans, conservative Republicans at that, tend to believe in due process. We tend to believe in protecting the individual from an overbearing government. And nowhere is the due process deprivation more significant. Nowhere is the intrusiveness of an all-powerful federal government more severe than when the federal government locks people up for years, sometimes decades at a time. This also has a very significant human cost, which I think is the most important element of all of it. We have husbands and fathers, sons, nephews, uncles, brothers, who have been locked up for years, sometimes decades at a time, when the circumstances often don't warrant it. The example that I love to tell in connection with this legislation, because it fits so well, is one involving a young man named Weldon Angelos. Weldon Angelos, who was prosecuted for selling 3 dime-bag quantities of marijuana, very small user quantities of marijuana over a 72-hour period. Mr. Angelos had a gun on his person at the time. He didn't brandish it, he didn't discharge it, didn't use it, he just had it on his person. But because of the way he was charged, and because of the way our other federal drug laws interact with 18 U.S.C. Section 924C, and because of the way 924C has been interpreted, Mr. Angelos received a minimum mandatory sentence of 55 years in prison. So this young man, in his mid-20s, father of 2 young children, will, absent some change, be in prison until he's about 80 years old for selling 3 dime-bag quantities of pot. Now, I don't mean to minimize the severity of his offense. I don't mean to suggest that it was not illegal or that it doesn't present significant public policy problems. But I have yet to meet a single person, male or female, Democrat or Republican, old or young, who thinks that that sentence was correct. In fact, not even the federal district judge who imposed the sentence, District Judge Paul Cassell, himself a former prosecutor, took the rare, unusual, almost unprecedented step of issuing an opinion disagreeing with his own sentence, saying this sentence is unconscionable, it's unreasonable, it's irrational, it makes no sense, and yet my hands are tied. I must impose it because Congress has given me no choice. But this sentence is wrong, and Congress must fix this problem, and Congress alone may fix this problem. That's why we need to fix this problem. Because for every young man like Weldon Angelos, there are many thousands of others who are in a similar position and who have been sentenced under an irrational, arbitrary, excessive sentence. Now, most of us, I dare say perhaps all of us up here, are not going to stand here and say that all minimum mandatory penalties are bad. I don't believe they are. I don't think any of us share that belief. But I think we'd be crazy if we didn't say that at some point between 1 day of incarceration and 99 years of incarceration, you can cross a threshold between a reasonable sentence and an unreasonable one. And unless we are willing as a Congress to reevaluate from time to time the reasonableness of those sentences as we impose them, we're going to create a lot of problems. We will not make the American people more safe. We will make them less safe if we cling arbitrarily and emotionally to those outdated, outmoded, and irrational laws that we intend to reform with this legislation. Thank you.